Okay, so now we know already how to get our UV templates, our UV layouts from Maya and 3D Max into our hard drive, into our computer. The next thing we need to do is now go on Photoshop and open the template that you use, okay? If you were working on this from last week, let's use the either 3D Max layout or UV Maya UV layout. Either or will be the same. Depends on what software you're gonna use. If you were working on this from last week, you can open the skin texture that you created and use it as your base, okay? And that will be good for the assignment. The important thing is to get these, the wireframe here. So if you don't have it, you can always put this layer on top of your file from last week. So the first thing you will notice when you open your UV template is that it's logged. It has a little log. As a practice, I usually double click and unlock it and rename it so that I can move it and do anything that I need to do with it. I'm going to call it UV layout. That way I know what it is. And you will have from last week your skin file that you can always bring in. So for this exercise, I'm just going to fill the canvas with any color. I'm gonna select blue because I'm a Blue Man Group fan. So I'm just gonna pretend that my character is blue, okay? But this will be the layer from last week. So I'm gonna double click that layer and name it Skin Texture from last week, okay? So now, right now the problem we're having is, if you click that little eye over there, that the texture is overlapping with the other one. So what I'm going to do is move the UV layout file on top. Now we don't see the blue. So what I'm going to do next is set that blending mode here where it says normal to screen. That will allow me to see through that UV template that I have, and I have more control of what I'm going to do next, okay? So that brings us to the next part. We have the torso over here and we have the legs over here. So let's bring in the other texture files. So I'm going to go File, Open, and my leather is here, my cloth is here. So I'm just going to open them. You can bring them one at a time too. And I'm going to lay out those windows. I'll just arrange them to tile them vertically. And this is an example I had before, but my computer crashed, so I couldn't save it. So let me just get rid of that so that you don't get confused. So there you go. Now you have the template and you have the leather and the cloth texture. Keep in mind when you're looking for your textures to be to not have light indications. Some of the leather and cloth textures that I saw available for downloads online had like either a bright spot on the one side or one side was lighter than others. Try to make it a little bit uniform. Like this one, you have some kind of indication of light because leather usually has a little bit of shine on it, but you don't see a bright spot on any sides of the texture. It's like the lighting kind of looks even throughout the two textures, okay? So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to bring those textures into my file with the template, and then I'm going to close these two because I don't need them. So I'm going to click over here on the leather and drag it to my template, and I'm going to close the original texture there. And I'm going to do the same for the cloth. I'm going to click and drag it. Remember to select the move tool for that. Okay, so then you can click and drag. And then close that texture, okay? That way I have them all together in one. So layer 2 will be cloth material. Layer 1 is my leather texture. Or leather texture. I should have put texture on it. It's not a material just yet. Excellent. So still with the move tool selected, I can always reposition it quickly, but I do need more reference of where I'm going to put this. So let's get that UV layout layer and put it all the way to the top so that you can see through all the other textures. Okay, now we can see that UV layout a little bit better. Okay, be careful not to move your UV layout, by the way. So as you move it through the layer stack, make sure you don't, accidentally do anything like that, because that will affect how you see everything. Okay, how everything is going to be placed, because this is pretty much telling you where you're going to put your material. Let's do leather pants and cloth, cloth material. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with the cloth material. This one over here. Okay, so I'm gonna click, and with the move tool selected, I'm going to position it on the top part of the chest, and this is where you're gonna be later editing your UV layout. I'm going to go scale it, so I'm gonna go edit, free transform. Okay, and I'm going to just scale it horizontally. Just make sure that you don't scale it too much that it gets distorted. If you get distorted, get a different texture, and then you might need to that is bigger, and you don't have to scale up. Okay, in this case it was a little bit smaller than I was hoping, but just be aware that if the texture is small, just find another one that is a little bit bigger. Okay, so I'm gonna press enter, and I have the top part of my chest, the torso, covered by the cloth image. But the problem is that I have this foot over here that is touching that cloth texture, and this one here, and this other part here, and I do not want that to happen. So I'm gonna quickly select the lasso tool here, the polygon lasso tool, and I'm going to make a selection, and I'm gonna just grab that part of where the foot is, and I can't see where there you go, and I'm going to delete that part of the texture. Okay, you can also add a layer mask if you don't want to delete it permanently, but for this example, I'm gonna keep things simple, and pretty much selecting the parts that touch other areas of your UVs, and delete. Press the delete key. Okay, I just pretty much want I did not want that. Want only the chest part, the top of the shirt, what will become the shirt. That's the part I want to be covered by that texture, nothing else. There we go. I think I might be missing a little tiny chunk over there, so delete. Okay, this is a simple way, fast, simple way to do that. Now what we just did is, when we bring this back to 3D Max, Maya, or Mudbox, that texture is going to show on that area of your character. Okay, because that's the UV layout. Then come on, okay, there. Okay, there you go. Now I'm going to go to the leather, and I'm going to do the same. And for the leather, because the leather is a little bit bigger, what I'm going to do is I'm going to make the selection of what I want to keep. I'm going to reverse that selection and then delete everything else that I do not need. So let me show you how to do that. First, I'm going to start with this part over here. This is one of the legs, so the leg pants. So I'm going to quickly make a selection here. It does not have to be exactly on the edge. Remember, there's no UVs outside that green area, so even if there's texture there, it will not reflect on your character. Okay, and I keep doing this. Let me try again. Click, click, click. I'm just pretty much selecting that leg pant. kind of hard for me. Oh, because I don't have my glasses. That's why I can see very well. Okay, now to select the other pant, leg pant, I'm going to hold the shift key down while I make my selection. And continue kind of circling around it to make sure I only get those UVs for that part selected. Good. And then I'm going to go down here on this part, because this part down here is pretty much the undergarment part. Let's put it that way, that bottom part of the torso up to the waist. So I'm gonna come over here and do this and that. Okay, so I have my two legs selected and the top of the pants. So the next thing I'm going to do is invert that selection. So go select, inverse, and I'm going to press the delete key. And look at what we just did. Now we have deleted the parts of the leather texture that were covering the areas where you had your skin painted. Remember, this blue layer that I have here is your skin texture layer from last week. So now you have your skin layer, and you have your leather layer, and you have your cloth layer. Okay, so the next two things we're going to do is save as a Photoshop format so that you can always come back and refine this if you need to. And then we're going to save as a JPEG. Once we save as a JPEG, we're going to bring that into 3D Max, Maya, and Mudbox to get the materials assigned. Okay, so let's go File, Save As, and let's save it as Photoshop. That's a Photoshop file, work file, and save. Say okay over there. And then I'm going to go, next I'm going to deactivate that UV layout because I do not need to have that wireframe. Some of you did show that on your file. And deselect, deselect, so that you don't have to select anything anymore. And just remember to deactivate here with the little eye layer. So File, Save As, and let's save that as a JPEG. And let's call it character texture. Character texture, and save. Say okay, and we're ready now to import that into our files. Okay, so let's start with Maya. Okay, you already have your character with the material from last week, so you would have already done the hypershade material. So I'm just going to create a simple blend. And on the blend, I'm going to double click there to get the attributes over here on the side. And on the color map, I'm going to map right here the file that we just created in Photoshop. Okay, so over here on the image name, let's click on that little folder and find that character material that we just created. Okay, so leather cloth, character texture right there. Okay, hit open, and it's right there. We haven't applied our characters, our material to the character, so let's right click, material to selection with our character selected. So let's this one, that one. Right click, assign material to selection. Okay, I think we have it on, probably not on texture mode. Let me double check what's happening here. Hold on 1 second. Sometimes let me stop the video capture software. Sometimes it interferes. So hold on 1 second. Okay, so I got it here working. Just make sure that you play with these settings over here, okay? So there is our character with the cloth and the leather applied to the areas that we indicated for that. Now, the next step that you will do, and I will let you be doing this next. Let's double click here. I want you to apply, here's what you need to do, the same map that you just created in the bump attribute, so you will do it here, okay? And also in Specular, okay? So I want you to do that. What is the bump map is going to do? It's going to use the light and dark values of that map that you just applied, and it's going to use it to raise or dent the surface. You see how everything looks so smooth over here? Let me see. You know, it kind of looks very smooth. You know, when you do bump mapping, and I'm just gonna show you briefly here. It's the same thing that we do. Bump, you just go there and image name. So character texture. Notice really, you know, pay attention to this part over here. Say open. Oh well, you applied it to everything. So that's the effect that you're gonna get. Okay. The bump will raise anything that's lighter, and notice that how it's bumping or pushing inwards whatever is you know, it is whatever is darker. Okay. What you can do is to, let me see where you can where's the color balance, color offset here. You can do alpha gain to decrease a little bit the effect. Okay, so that's under the color balance. So if you want a subtle, you know, subtle bump, just do it right there. Okay, and I want you to do the same for Specular. So I want you to go on your own. This one is going to be on you. Go back to the hypershade, double click on that blend, and there's your attributes again. And I want you to do it for Specular next, okay? Over here. The Specular is going to do exactly the same. It's going to make shinier the values that are lighter on your texture and darker, or more matte, not darker, but more matte, you know, less shiny. Values that are darker on your texture. Okay, so once you finish, remember, render the character from a few views, and you know, just do a little bit of zooming in over here, you know, to show how it looks, and that's it. You might notice that it looks a little bit more flat on the render. That is normal. Just you may need to create a light with shadows, and I put some resources in the classroom showing you how to do that, because bump mapping works directly with shadows. Okay, so let's go back to 3D Max. Okay, and do exactly the same. That's what we're gonna do next. On 3D Max, we're gonna press N for the material editor. You already did this last week. I'm gonna create a simple standard material, and on the diffuse color over here, I'm going to apply now the texture that we just created. So I'm gonna go to over here and character texture, open. And next we have to apply that to the character. So here it is, and it is unrealistic. Let's go back. It is over there. Let me go back to, oh yes, and assign material to selection. Sometimes the shady mode that you use. Hold on, let me stop the let me stop the capture again. Hold on. Okay, I got it. If that happens to you, just go on here. I was going shaded and it was not responding, so go materials and shaded materials with maps. That way you can see the way it looks. Okay, excellent. So we have that. Now let's close the material editor. Oh, let's go back to it, because I'm going to show you how to do the bump, and I want you all to do the Specular. Okay, so let's double click here so that we see the attributes over here, and you already put the color map with us, the diffuse, and over here on the map section, click on that plus sign, and that's where your specular level will be, and just your specular level. Yeah, in this case specular level, that's where you're gonna do it. Specular color will be a little bit different than Maya, so it will not affect the value of that. Just do specular level. Specular color is to change. You know, if you want an object to highlight in orange, you can do that there. So bump, let's do the bump map so that you see, you just click here where it says none, go on bitmap, say okay, and bring that character texture and say okay, and there is your bump. You can increase it as much as you want, and then you're seeing you might say, but I don't see it. There is the bump map applied, or you can put it on you know, much smooth, you know, render. You see that it creates a little bit more smooth appearance. So I want you to do that then also for the specular level, and you will see that it will make shinier the parts on the texture that look lighter, and it will make more matte, you know, less shiny, those areas that look dark. So the leather will most likely look very opaque, and then the white parts will look much shinier. Okay, so that's it. Then after that, get a few renders, re-render and render, and save these over here. And that is as of 3D Max in Mudbox. Okay, let me save this file because I'm scared that it might crash. It already crashed on me twice because there's so many software open. So I'll be right